Welcome to the newest episode of Beatin' and Bangin'. I'm your host, Kyle Dalton. In today's video, we're going to touch on multiple topics, including revisiting the Ty Gibbs Brad Keselowski pit road incident during Sunday's Cup Series race in Sonoma, and what NASCAR officials had to say about it yesterday. Plus, Keselowski took to social media yesterday and offered an interesting response on what he thinks might solve this issue and prevent it from happening in the future. Joey Logano met with the media yesterday ahead of his 600th career Cup Series start at Dover, and we'll discuss a couple things he said, including talking about his plans for retirement and what he thinks of rivalries in the sport. We'll also discuss an interview yesterday with Shane Van Gisbergen and why he suggested Kyle Busch is scared. And we'll wrap up by discussing the latest TV ratings through the first 20 races and our weekly By the Numbers segment. However, before we get to crunching those numbers, let's go back to Sunday and the pit road incident at the end of the second stage when Ty Gibbs was going into his pit box with Brad Keselowski right on his rear bumper. It just so happened that Gibbs's pit box was right in front of Keselowski's pit box, and by rule, he can drive through the number 6 team's pit box while getting to his box. In this instance, the number 54 driver hit one of the tires in the hands of the number 6 front tire carrier. Immediately after Keselowski finished his stop, that tire carrier went and confronted members of the number 54 pit crew. During the broadcast, NASCAR announced that Gibbs had done nothing wrong. Dale Jr., Steve Letarte, and everybody I've heard since agreed that the 22-year-old didn't break any rules. But I want you to listen to NASCAR Cup Series Managing Director Brad Moran and his weekly appearance yesterday on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio when he talked about the incident and the rules.
Crew member is allowed over the wall. Do they have to keep a foot tight to it? What kind of locates their proximity to the wall for until their car is one box away?
Yeah, the wording is close to the wall, and again, but there's many other words in those rules that you cannot impede a car coming in front of you, and we usually see this obviously when it's nose to tail, the next box. This is when the quarters get tight. Everybody needs to work together. Getting the actual footage and being able to police foot against the wall was in there for a little bit, but very difficult to police with all the traffic and everything going on pit road. So for cameras or getting that view.
Did you hear that one part in there where he said they used to have a rule where the foot had to be on the wall? If that rule was still in place, you can see the number 6 tire carrier would have been in violation because Keselowski's onboard camera clearly shows that he was several feet off the wall. But it's not in place because, according to Moran, it's too hard to police. Really? You have overhead cameras in each pit box. Hearing him say that made me think back to a week earlier at Chicago and not having cameras able to see Cody Ware's crash. While I know, as Moran and Chris Gabehart said on Sunday, this is a rare occasion that 2 cars are coming in at the same time and in adjacent pit boxes. I think NASCAR could do itself a favor by having a hard and fast rule that a foot must be in contact with the wall, and then if such an incident occurs, we can go to the overhead camera or the in-car camera because we got a pretty clear angle of it in this situation. But that's not the end of the story. Yesterday, Keselowski took to social media to share what he thought about the situation and jokingly suggested what the team might do to remedy the problem going forward. Quote, Amazon really does have everything a pit crew could need. Legal too, end quote. And then he included a link to Amazon and a product that features black, menacing-looking spikes that could be used on pit road to prevent other cars from driving through his pit box. BK showing his sense of humor. Moving on to our next story, and it's about Keselowski's former Penske teammate, Joey Logano. Logano appeared on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio yesterday and talked about what happened the week before at Chicago with Ross Chastain.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously was intentional. He admitted it was intentional, which is obviously very frustrating from my point of view because he pulled the gun on the wrong person. Right, I mean that's how I look at it. I was an innocent bystander in the whole thing, and I'm the one that gets wiped out. Yeah, I'm obviously very pissed off about it. Upset about the way it was handled post-race from his perspective. Upset that NASCAR didn't step in and do anything about it. That's where my honest opinion is at the moment. I have to continue to go race though, right? I have to continue to go out there and try to win. But things like that are always going to be on your mind. You're always going to remember it, and you keep moving, right? Like, it is what it is. Those are choices that were made by every party involved, and now I got to go out there and do what I have to do to go win the races now. just part of it, right? It's when you put in your memory bank and you move on.
I thought it was interesting to hear him say how he pulled the gun on the wrong person. My interpretation is this isn't done. So yesterday, Logano was on a call with reporters to talk about his 600th career Cup Series start, which is coming up this weekend at Dover. During the call, with his comments about Ross fresh on my mind, I wanted to ask him about that incident and in his 600 starts if there was one particular rivalry that stuck out to him and what he thought in general about rivalries in the sport.
I don't know, like I said, I don't put that much thought into it, to be honest with you. Your rivalries are great for sports. There's no doubt about that. People love them. It draws a lot of attention. It's not a bad thing. There's two different kinds of rivalries, right? There's a rivalry where everyone's wrecking each other, right? Is that kind, which aren't the healthy kind. And then there's the rivalries that are just, win for win, kind of going back and forth, where, you get two of the best going back and forth on just wins. I think those are the best kind of rivalries, right? Those are the more fun ones to be a part of, right? When you got two just dogs going back and forth at each other, that's, trading wins. Those are the best kind. Trading punches, yeah, like those ones, are fun for a moment. But I don't think that's really the best thing about our sport in general. Or just any sport. Like I don't care about seeing that too much. It's just drama right at that point. But I like seeing the competition rivalries the most. And who those are with, man, I feel like it's flowed and changed over the years so much on who that is. And every year it seems like it could be someone different, right? That's maybe that top shot, hot shot guy.
So that was his answer to my question. But there was another question and response that I wanted to talk about, and the question came from The Athletic's Jordan Bianchi.
You're 35 years old. You've not mentioned the R word by any means or anything, but you are kind of at that age when drivers maybe start to creep into it a little bit about thinking about it. Have you given it any thought to how long you want to continue to do this for?
I always say as long as I can win, right? I really feel like that's kind of the standard for me. I love racing, but I really love winning a lot more. And if I want to, I can go race other things and win. I'm probably going to do that. But my dream's always to be a NASCAR driver, be a NASCAR champion. And if I can win and be a help to my team, then I want to stick around. As soon as I feel like I'm a drag on the team and I'm not bringing anything to the table anymore, whether that's on the racetrack or off the racetrack, that's when I need to get out of the way. Right? Because at that point, I want to see Roger Penske and his race team and the people that are there be successful. I care about them a lot. And so I want to be a way to contribute to that. That's what I want out of myself. That's what I would expect. If I was Roger Penske, I would expect that out of an employee, especially that's been there for as long as I've been there. So, for me, that to me is going to be the deciding factor when that is. I don't want to stick around and be one of those guys that was like, oh, man, he just went a few years too long. Like you don't want to be that guy. So I think whenever that happens, that happens. I don't know when that is, right? I would be an idiot to think that you can be competing at the top level at, into your 50s, right? Like what athlete's ever done that, right? Something changes at some point. But right now I still feel as fresh as ever. I feel as sharp as ever. I'm driven as much as ever. Right. I still care, right? I still get emotional about things. That shows me that I care a lot. So, with those factors still there, where the end is, I don't know yet. I don't know.
Logano is saying something similar to what Denny Hamlin has said for a while now. And that's once they get to a point where they know they can't win, they're done. Logano is 36 years old. Hamlin is 44 years old. So for you Logano fans, if we're doing the math correctly based on Hamlin's career, he's got at least 8 more years left in him. if not more. Moving on to our next news item, I was listening to Shane Van Gisbergen in an interview yesterday on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio. They talked about all of his recent success, and then at the end of the conversation, discussed him running in the Legends Summer Shootout at Charlotte Motor Speedway, where he's been regularly competing in races this summer against Bubba Wallace and IndyCar driver and fellow Kiwi Scott McLaughlin.
I love the summer shootouts at Charlotte. I love that you're out there too. Is Brexton Busch, is Kyle's son, out there too?
Yeah, he's in the younger classes though. He's a little bit young, and then Kyle's a little bit old and scared. He's in the Masters class. He doesn't race with us, so that would have been fun.
Funny stuff. By the way, they had the latest round of Legends racing last night. In the Legends Pro Division, Tyler Reif won. Bubba Wallace finished second. Scott McLaughlin finished fifth, and SVG finished ninth. Meanwhile, in the Masters division, Kyle Busch put on a master class and won his race. In our next story, I wanted to take a look at the television ratings, and for this week, I wanted to start with the Xfinity Series. Why? Because I want to show you what the numbers for that series looks like as it went head-to-head with IndyCar this weekend at Iowa. And remember, the IndyCar race was on Fox, while the Xfinity Series race was on the CW, and it wasn't even close. Xfinity pulled in just under 1 million viewers, while IndyCar had just under 600,000. That's a really solid number for Xfinity. Moving on to the Cup side, and you can see Sunday's event in Sonoma, the 20th race of the 2025 campaign. It drew an audience of 2.19 million viewers. It appears we've stabilized around the 2 million mark per race over the last month or so. Continuing with numbers, and it's time for this week's By the Numbers segment. Let's start with our last 5 races analysis, and we have some movement at the top, but not the very top. Chase Elliott was the top driver last week with an average finishing position of 8.0. This week, the 2020 champ has clamped down even tighter on his top spot with an impressive AFP of 5.6. And as you can see, he's been really good with 4 top 5s. Elliott is followed by his HMS teammate Alex Bowman, who, if you'll recall, it wasn't too long ago that he was languishing at the bottom of this graphic. Now the number 48 pilot is second with an AFP of 9.0, including 3 finishes inside the top 10. Holding down the third spot for a second week in a row is Ty Gibbs at 9.6. The number 54 driver has been solid and consistent with all 5 finishes inside the top 15 and 2 of them inside the top 10. Gibbs is followed by a pair of RFK Racing drivers in Chris Buescher and Ryan Preece, who appropriately enough are tied with an AFP of 11.4. I also wanted to mention Shane Van Gisbergen. He comes in number 6 this week with an AFP of 11.6. And take a look at his last 5 races. He's got some work to do on the ovals, but on the road courses, the guy is a total badass. Rounding out the top 10 are Tyler Reddick, Chase Briscoe, AJ Allmendinger, and Denny Hamlin. As I always do, let's take a look at some of the bigger names who've been struggling as of late. And William Byron has had a rough go in his last 5 races with an AFP of 24.2 and 3 finishes of 27th or worse. Bubba Wallace's last 5 have been rough as well, with only a single top 15 in there. And Front Row is in the unfortunate position of rounding out the bottom of our list with a pair of drivers in Todd Gilliland and Noah Gragson. Okay, so we've seen the big picture over the last 5. Let's focus in on Sunday's race at Sonoma, and we'll start with our race progression graphs and the top 5 finishers. If there's any question on how good SVG was, just look at this, and he only strayed from that top spot during pit stops. Impressive stuff. The other top finishers also ran near the front for most of the day. Let's take a look at SVG's Trackhouse teammates, and you can see Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez had some up and down days, with the number 99 finishing inside the top 15, while the number 1 car finished 24th. Outside of Denny Hamlin, Joe Gibbs Racing had a good day in wine country, with Chase Briscoe earning a runner-up result, while Christopher Bell and Ty Gibbs both finished inside the top 10. Hendrick Motorsports, on the other hand, had mixed results, with Elliott and Byron both earning a pair of top 10 finishes, while Alex Bowman and Kyle Larson struggled, especially the number 5 team, which finished a dismal 35th. And let's wrap up our race progression by taking a look at Richard Childress Racing. I think it's an interesting one because it just goes to show you how Kyle Busch has the ability to overcome adversity. Remember, he spun out early and then recovered to earn a top 10 finish. And lastly, let's take a look at our biggest movers on the day, starting with those who went the wrong direction. And the biggest loser on the day was Ryan Blaney, who started 7th, and as I documented in Monday's episode, had a rough day, getting sent into the Sonoma Hills by Chris Buescher before getting bumped into by Kyle Busch trying to pass as the lucky dog. He finished 36th. Kyle Larson had a day he'd just as soon forget, starting 11th and dropping 24 spots and finishing 35th. The other drivers dropping were Ross Chastain, Zane Smith, and AJ Allmendinger. Conversely, those who had good days and picked up spots were a tight group, with Justin Haley gaining the most positions, moving up 14. Joey Logano and Todd Gilliland gained the second most positions, improving 13 spots for the day, while Josh Berry and Austin Dillon each picked up a dozen spots during the run in Sonoma. Now that's all the news for the day, but I do have one order of business, and that's announcing the winner of the 11x14 Great Orange Escape print from last Wednesday's episode. And the winner is JJT12380. That's JJT12380. Please send an email to Kyle at Beaten and Bangin' so I can send out your prize. All right, guys, that's a wrap on today's episode. Let me hear what you thought about it. What do you think NASCAR should do going forward to avoid any confusion on the rules when it comes to pit crew members in the pit box to avoid the situation we had on Sunday? Second, for you Joey Logano fans, when do you think he's going to retire? He didn't have a date in mind, but did seem to have a pretty good idea of the signs he's looking for, and that's basically an inability to win. And finally, what did you think of this week's By the Numbers segment? Any numbers in there that got your attention? As always, thanks again for checking out the latest episode and supporting the channel. I really appreciate it, and hope you have a great rest of your day.